The Senate has dismissed all impeachment charges against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, ending the House Republican push to remove the cabinet secretary from office over his handling of the U.S. Mexico border, and ending his trial before arguments even began. Today is Wednesday, April 17, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. The Senate has dismissed all impeachment charges against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, ending the House Republican push to remove the cabinet secretary from office over his handling of the U.S. Mexico border, and ending his trial before arguments even began. Senate Democrats argued that the articles were unconstitutional. The first article charged Mayorkas with willful and systemic refusal to comply with immigration law. The second article charged Mayorkas with A.J. breach of trust for saying the border was secure. The votes were 51-48 and 51-49, both along party lines. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the House Republicans' case failed to meet the high standard of high crimes and misdemeanors. The U.S. Justice Department has agreed to pay approximately $100 million to settle claims with about 100 people who say they were sexually assaulted by sports doctor Larry Nassar. A source with direct knowledge of the negotiations told the Associated Press about the deal on Wednesday. The deal has not been finalized, and no money has been paid. The source spoke on condition of anonymity because the person was not authorized to speak before a formal announcement. An internal investigation found that FBI agents mishandled abuse allegations before Nassar was arrested in 2016. The settlement was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. A Justice Department spokesperson declined to comment. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will decide whether and how to respond to Iran's major air assault earlier this week, brushing off calls for restraint. Israel has vowed to respond to Iran's unprecedented attack, leaving the region bracing for further escalation after months of fighting in Gaza. Israel's allies have been urging Israel to hold back on any response that could spiral. The pressure came as Iran's president warned that even the tiniest invasion would bring a massive and harsh response. Israel and Iran have waged a long shadow war, but the weekend strike was Iran's first direct military attack on Israel. Iran held an annual army parade at a new location Wednesday, possibly to avoid being targeted. A new report shows that the head of Maui's emergency management agency dragged his heels about returning to the island as wildfires ripped across the island last August. That came as a broader communications breakdown left authorities in the dark and residents without emergency alerts. The report released Wednesday says communications problems were also encountered with the Hawaiian Electric Company, and officials were unable to confirm that power lines were de-energized until well after the flames had caused widespread damage. The report is the second of two major assessments out this week about the deadliest U.S. wildfire in a century. Donald Trump's legal team says it tried serving a subpoena on Stormy Daniels as she arrived for a screening of her documentary at a gay bar in Brooklyn last month, but the porn actor and hush money trial figure refused to take it and walked away. Newly filed court documents show a process server working for the former president's lawyers approached Daniels with papers demanding information, but was forced to leave them at her feet. The encounter outside the $3 bill nightclub has touched off a month-long battle between Trump's lawyers and Daniels' attorney that continued this week as the presumptive Republican nominee's criminal trial began in Manhattan. Daniels' lawyer Clark Brewster claims they never received the paperwork. A quarter of a century after the Columbine High School shooting, the trauma from the attack has remained with survivors. Some have taken years to identify themselves as survivors since they were not physically wounded. The aftershocks, often unacknowledged in the years before mental health struggles were more widely recognized, led to some survivors suffering insomnia, dropping out of school, or disengaging from their spouses or families. But some have developed healthy ways to cope with the shadow of that horrific day through therapy and the support from an expanding group of fellow mass shooting survivors. Democrats in the Arizona Senate cleared a path to bring a proposed repeal of the state's near-total ban on abortions to a vote after the state's highest court concluded the law can be enforced, and the State House blocked efforts to undo the long-dormant statute. No vote was taken on the repeal itself, but 2 Republicans sided with 14 Democrats in the Senate in changing rules to let a repeal proposal advance after the deadline for hearing bills passed. Proponents say the Senate could vote on the repeal as early as May 1st. The state's near-total ban permits abortions only for saving the woman's life and provides no exceptions for rape or incest. Speaker Mike Johnson has unveiled a long-awaited package of bills that will provide military aid to Ukraine and Israel, replenish U.S. weapons systems, and give humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza. The package totals $95.3 billion in spending, which matches what the Senate passed in mid-February. But there are a few differences designed to win over some House conservatives. The main distinction is that the House bill provides more than $9 billion in economic assistance to Ukraine in the form of forgivable loans. The Senate bill included no such provision seeking repayment. Indonesian authorities have issued a tsunami alert after eruptions at Ruang Mountain sent ash thousands of feet high. Officials have ordered more than 11,000 people to leave the area. The volcano on the northern side of Sulawesi Island had at least 5 large eruptions in the past 24 hours. That's according to Indonesia's Center for Volcanology and Geological Disaster Mitigation. Indonesia is an archipelago of 270 million people and has 120 active volcanoes. It's prone to volcanic activity because it sits along the Ring of Fire, a horseshoe-shaped series of seismic fault lines around the Pacific Ocean. President Joe Biden has misstated key details about his uncle's death in World War II as he honored the man's wartime service and said Donald Trump was unworthy of serving as commander-in-chief. While in Pittsburgh, Biden spoke about his uncle Ambrose Finnegan Jr., aiming to draw a contrast with reports that Trump, while president, had called fallen service members suckers and losers. The president said Finnegan was shot down in New Guinea and his body was never recovered, adding that there were many cannibals in the area. The U.S. government's record of missing service members does not attribute Finnegan's death to hostile action or indicate cannibals were any factor. Today's news has been reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Wednesday, April 17, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.